Shalom, brothers and sisters. Some more news from around the world. So, a couple of interesting things going on right now in this new year. We have a situation where Biden is having really bad tension with China, obviously, with the whole situation in that part of the world and Taiwan, which is really an ever developing story. At the moment, China is saying they can drop 50,000 special forces within the first few hours on Taiwan and 100,000 within the first 24 hours. So the big worry here is not even the impressive naval fleet or aerial operations and things like that in that area and the weapons that China can bring to bear, but the actual troops that can drop on that place so quickly. I don't think Taiwan has got what it takes to be able to repel that kind of incursion. Biden knows this, and all Biden can do is ramp up the tension at the moment with China, but without any real solutions. Biden's also got massive tensions with Russia. They've had multiple phone calls this year already. In the latest one, he's confirmed with Putin that he does not, under any circumstances, want to enter into a nuclear exchange with Russia. I wouldn't either, because I think America at this stage of the game will come out second best. And it's a situation where everyone loses. At the end of a nuclear war, the next war we go back to spears and clubs, because a lot of people are wiped out. And then, just to put the cherry on the cake, Biden has massive tension with Iran, and Iran calling for Trump and Kushner and a bunch of other people to be put on trial for the death of their great military leader under Trump's rule. And that's not going to happen. And Biden has just got the tension running with him. Iran is becoming more and more belligerent and aggressive and in America's face at the same time. So this is three fronts splitting, and Biden is not the correct person to be dealing with this crisis at the moment. So it cannot end well. So it's worth watching. Then rockets were fired towards Israel a couple of days ago. They landed on the coast, fortunately. No casualties. Egypt advised Israel not to retaliate, but Israel, surprisingly enough, with their new government leadership, has actually chosen to retaliate, to show that they won't tolerate any rocket firing, regardless of what excuses are used to cover it. So fighter jets, helicopters, tanks have hit multiple targets in Gaza, linked to rocket production, they say. This is also a retaliation for an Israeli civilian earlier in last week that was shot while working on the Gaza border. He's recovering in hospital, so it's not a fatality. But this shows you that tension back in Israel and Gaza are ramping up again. Are we about to see the next exchange like the last one last year with multiple rockets and a war between the two of them? This could be something that's developing really fast, and that's on top of all the terror attacks and tensions between them at the moment. So again, watch Israel. Russia has hypersonic missiles, proved again and again, and displayed and deployed close to Ukraine as well and in the ocean. China has successfully tested their hypersonic missiles. They have them, they're ready to deploy them and use them. USA still failing with the hypersonic missiles. Putin, however, says he's already calculated by when they will have hypersonic missiles. And even he's concerned with the power of the hypersonic missiles and the speed with which targets can be reached now with nuclear payloads. Him being one of the nations that has active and working hypersonic missiles. So again, this is a power stretch between the superpowers, and it's interesting to watch. It could end really badly. Australia has bought 7 years worth of snake bites, okay, for their people. That's one for every citizen every 6 months. My question is not even about that, and we won't go down that road because then this video will get removed. But why did they buy for 7 years? 7 years. Think about it. 7-year tribulation coming up right now. 7 years. They're prepping and purchasing for 7 years. This is not a coincidence, people. The Bible is never wrong. God said 7 years of trouble, Jacob's trouble is coming. These people are buying stuff for 7 years. Not 8 years, not 5 years, 7 years. I find this extremely interesting. Indonesia, on a good point, and Saudi Arabia are in talks to join the Abraham Accords. Now, the Abraham Accords could be that agreement that the Antichrist strengthens. And if you look at the Abraham Accords, we have the UAE, Bahrain, USA, Sudan, Morocco, Kosovo, Iraq is trying to join, Egypt and Jordan are at peace with Israel, and now Indonesia and Saudi Arabia. And the Antichrist will come on the scene and he will strengthen a covenant with many. Is that the Abraham Accords? It could very well be, because many are now part of this and more joining every day to normalize relations with Israel and work with peace. So I think in a war situation, after a war, when the man of peace steps onto the board and he makes peace with everyone and settles everyone's fears, can he strengthen this agreement? Absolutely. So interesting times. 2022 is going to open a lot more of your eyes than were open in 2021. 2021 setting a record for natural disasters, storms and volcanoes. Let's see what 2022 does, because we're now running full speed downhill into the final appointment of mankind with God's judgment, His righteousness and His holiness. That's not going to be a good place to be if you haven't made right with Jesus Christ. Seek Him while He may be found. Find Him at the foot of the cross, the sacrifice He made for you. Accept Him into your life as your Lord and Savior, and walk in the light of Jesus Christ while you still have time. Reach out to your neighbors and your friends. Don't worry about being referred to as the crazy one or the mad one. Wear that as a crown, because you're doing this to save them and snatch them from darkness. God bless. Keep looking up. Shalom.